It's called a promo,
Shut
kid,
your
and
mouth,
if you want to
John.
be the big dog, you're going to have to learn how to do it, so go ahead.
You ready? No! I said, are you ready?
That was good. Glad you finally decided to pull that giant stick out of your butt and have some fun for once in your life.
You're uneducated marks! You sit there on your phones tweeting out your opinions like they're worth a damn. Let me explain something to you people. You don't know shit!
And I'd like to think that maybe this company will be better after Vince McMahon is dead.
Awesome. So today, joined by Ray Lopez, a fellow pro wrestling fan, and also a debuting author who wrote a book, Lock Up, Professional Wrestling in Our World, which hits the shelves December 3rd. Thanks for joining us today, Ray, and I'm excited to get to chat with you. The first question off the bat, of course, is like, what made you want to write a book about pro wrestling?
Hey guys, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be here with y'all. This project has been years in the making. It was something I took up during COVID period. You know, there was that big lockdown when it initially hit, and I found myself that I had a lot more time on my hands than I used to, and more enough time to make a person go mad. So I was like, I really need a project to kind of sink my teeth into to keep me from bouncing off the walls, so you say. So I was looking for a project. I thought, I loved wrestling. I've always loved wrestling. It's like, well, maybe I could write a book about it, and then kind of coming up with what type of book I wanted to write, how I wanted to write it about. The project just kind of unfolded from there. So that was really the genesis of the COVID project. So I guess there's a silver lining on every dark cloud.
Amen.
Yeah, that's what's up. I'm really curious about what the process of putting the book together and how difficult it was to get the final result.
Well, it took some time, and so we work on it here and there. Obviously, I have a day job and got the family and all the regular obligations in his life. So it was a working process. I think the fun thing about writing a book is you can kind of write it at your own pace. Some people, God bless them, they can churn them out real fast. Other people, George R.R. Martin, takes we're still waiting on his next one. They take forever. So I mean, working at your own pace to create a book is definitely beneficial, but it's a labor of love. Lots of editing, lots of going back, lots of revising, lots of going in. You think it's done and then it's not. So with technology today, that really helped out. So if I was waiting around somewhere, I had my documents on War, and I could just re-edit a paragraph and just start looking at things, seeing if I could find mistakes. So finding time to work on it wherever you can was really key for me. Just finding that time to put in the work to get it all done.
Oh yeah. Little aside, I'm a poet. I write poetry. And I sort of have that same thing. I have on my phone. I have Word to anytime I'm out, need to edit something or something comes to me, put it down.
I knew as a language arts major, he was really excited to ask that question.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a process. Whenever there's downtime, I would always, instead of playing on your phone or just scrolling endlessly through apps, get on there, start looking at it, rewriting it. We're working on it. Some of the for instance, there's a chapter in there called The Math and Science of a Wrestler. In this chapter, we've created 30 graphs that illustrate some of the greatest wrestlers' careers and break down them in different fashions. So we broke down their gimmick. We broke down, how much time they spend as a heel and a babyface. And the one that took a lot of time was we broke down how long were they actively a wrestler. And by that, I mean, we took their career and then we subtracted time. So if they were out for injury for a period of time, if they just took a vacation, hiatus, personal time, rehab, non-compete clause from one promotion to another. So we try to figure out how much some of these iconic wrestlers that we all know about, they actually spent as an active wrestler. And then we figured out, well, how much time of that did they actually spend as a champion? And then it was like, well, which champion? So we figured out how much time did they spend as the heavyweight champion, how much time as a medium level champion, how much time is carrying the tag belts or the small belts. So that one was a little I had to be in front of my office to get that one done because it was intensive. But a lot of the writing you could do on the fly. But that's one of the chapters that it's about. So there's 30 of well-known, almost 30 of the great wrestlers that we're breaking down the careers. And I think even super hardcore fans that know a ton about wrestling will be surprised to see some of the numbers that we came up with when it comes to that chapter.
Then you break it down by the numbers, it gets insane. It takes an incredible amount of dedication and time consumption to get that done. I'm thoroughly impressed to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It was, I think the fans will be interested in it. I think it's something they would be interested to find out. And hey, we've done the work for you, so pick up the book, and we got all the numbers out there. And then there's also the disputes, like how many times was Ric Flair a champion? Some people say 24, some people say 16. 16 is the number that they tell us he's been the world champion, but he may have been the world champion more than that. It depends on which belts get caught. So there's a lot of like minutiae in there that we kind of explained in the preamble about what we're counting and what we're not counting and why we're counting it. So, it tries to go into detail to shine some more light on some of these greats' careers.
And you definitely seem to know a good extensive amount going far back. When did you fall in love with pro wrestling? Was there a specific era that really resonated with you, or was it just lifelong?
Yeah, really. I think when I was about like 8 years old, is when I first started it. Maybe around that time. I loved it. I was all in. Had the monitos, had the little, had the bed sheets, had everything. Went to my first wrestling match and loved it. That was the era of like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man and the WWE, and it kind of worked out great because that area was very kiddish and cartoonish. But I was 8 years old, so I was eating it up and loving it. And as I grew up and became a teenager, kind of just coincidentally, so did wrestling. It became in the Stone Cold, the NWO, the more reality-driven storylines, all that stuff. So it was just, that's just kind of funny how it worked out with the way when I was growing up. It felt like the wrestling business grew up too. So it was a nice transition, I suppose, to keep being a fan and staying a fan.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I know we was like middle school for us.
Yeah. Elementary, middle school.
Yeah.
The same age.
That was around the time of like, that was around the Ruthless Aggression era.
Yep.
John Cena. But so lately, I think I watched your previous interview, and I saw that you were watching, at least as far as the whole Bryan Danielson bag incident.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm very curious your take on the two different big promotions, AEW and WWE. Do you have like a like and a dislike for each one?
Well, when either of them use too realistic violence, I kind of don't like it. I think part of professional wrestling is escapism. And that was like the plastic bag why I kind of didn't like it. I think bringing bladed weapons to a wrestling ring also, like I never liked it when Drew McIntyre carried his sword either. So WWE's that kind of stuff. Because if you're bringing a sword, what's next? Somebody's going to bring a gun down to the ring? Might as well just start shooting each other. It's too much. Steel chairs and tables and ladders, that's one thing. But like start bringing bladed weapons and covering, suffocating people, that gets a little too hard. So, there's criticisms on both leagues. There's things I enjoy about both of them. I don't like WWE when they're oversaturating the advertisements, like at WrestleMania when they have the logos in the middle of the ring.
Man.
It's just too much. I think one of them was like an ass wipe match with the Uso brothers. It was too much. And AEW can do some, which I think they are improving on, is getting better storytelling and maybe like pumping the brakes a little bit. They seem to go at a breakneck speed and not let things breathe. And I think they are improving in that. So there's pros and cons about that, but it's a great time to be a fan because there's something for everything. There's things about AEW I love, and there's things about WWE I love, and we don't have to pick one side. I know there's a lot of tribalism now.
Oh yeah.
But you don't have to I like them both.
I think wrestling's really progressed over the years, over the generations. There's been kind of down periods, but in a long-term sense, I think it's progressed.
For sure. We're in a great period right now. It's out there. With the influence on culture, and you see it in the movies. How I think Rock's got a new blockbuster about to come out that it's everywhere. Look at the world of politics, which has happened with the endorsements and the interviews and all that stuff. I think wrestling has become maybe arguably more influential now than it has been since the Attitude Era. That's for sure.
Yeah. I would agree with that on 100% accuracy. Linda McMahon is part of Trump's cabinet as well. So like wrestling has translated into all aspects of the world.
Absolutely. And I think other aspects of the world are learning from wrestling, whether that be for good or bad. I think they're taking some of the way that a wrestler can communicate to people. You see that in the politicians. I think that's something that whether you like it or not, I think that's what Trump was good at. He connected with people, and I think he learned that from his ties to professional wrestling, or at least partly, how to really connect with folks. So I think there's more of an intermingling, which is kind of what the book is all about. It's called Lockup. It's intermingling about its culture and professional wrestling, and also there's a lot of fan talk in it as well.
Wow. Okay, that's what's up. So, are there any highlights of the book specifically that you think you wouldn't get anywhere else?
Well, the book is very. I think the book is a unique presentation. When I was doing the research and reading a lot of wrestling books, especially during that COVID time, I was finding myself they either break down into one or two categories, either a biography / autobiography type of work, or they're like a historical work that talks about like a certain period of time. But what we try to do is have an intermingling of kind of all of that and a lot of fun in there. For instance, one chapter is called Kaufman's, titled after Andy Kaufman, in which we have a fake movie awards things about professional wrestling. So there's a variety of categories, best tag team performance, best fight sequence involved featuring a wrestler, best documentary on professional wrestling, best heel performance. There's all kinds of categories in there, so we've broken it down in a fun way. So it's not your traditional type of book where you just read it. There's charts, there's graphs, there's illustrations, there's timelines. There's a lot to consume there that I think makes it very unique. We have a book that we talk about football and professional wrestling, but we're doing it in the way of a fantasy football style draft where you're only choosing professional wrestlers. Then we can kind of talk about these wrestlers and their background in football and who we're picking into what position and who would make a good wide receiver or a good running back or whatnot.
Wow, that's crazy.
I think that's what Vince was trying to do with the XFL to begin with.
Yeah, definitely. I think professional wrestling and football have always kind of gone hand in hand. I mean, if you like football, you like professional wrestling. There's a lot of overlap there on the fan bases. And there's a lot of overlap from ex-professional or ex-football players going into professional wrestling in the world. So we kind of explore all that in one chapter. So it touches on a lot of different things. Some of the chapters are like more fun, like that one, and some of them take on a more serious tone. There's like Race in the Ring, where we kind of talk about the treatment of minorities in professional wrestling, what we've seen on camera, how they've been portrayed, some of the flaws and the errors.
It needs to be talked about.
Yeah, and that's what that's one of the things that part of I wrote this book is to make sure we preserve the history of professional wrestling, because I hate when I don't mind the disclaimers. If you want to put a disclaimer out there, for instance, was it WrestleMania 6, the Roddy Rod Piper and Bad News Bear match? I think they just scrubbed that. If you go back and watch it on Peacock, they deleted that whole match. Probably because Roddy Rod Piper was like half in blackface, which I understand completely why it's super offensive to a lot of people. But I also think like, well, we can't just pretend that didn't happen. That happened. That's something that happened, and for better or worse, people can deal with that how they want to deal with that or take away what they can. So that's part of the book, and we talk about that match. Because we got to preserve these histories, and you can't just rewrite it for the sake of political correctness. I mean, if it happened, doesn't mean we condone it, but we have to recognize it and learn from it. I think if we forget it and we delete it, what are we learning from?
For sure, that's a big part of I think any kind of thing that we attach ourselves to is making sure everything's fair, but also that the whole story's told. Speaking of stories, so do you think you got everything you wanted to out of this book, or can we see another one after this one, or any other kind of book for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with how the book came out and what we put into it and all that stuff. That said, I have had some ideas for a second one. It's kind of similar, but kind of different. So it's in progress. Let's just say it might be a while coming. I mean, it might be years down the road, but it's in progress. I think there may be another one in me, but we'll see how people like this one and what they like about it. I've gotten some. It's been out like on a limited release now. The national release is coming out on December the 3rd, but I've gotten some good feedback about it. I think people will dig it if they give it a chance and check it out. So I'm definitely working on a second one. It's not going to be a sequel. It's going to be a different kind of book, but it's going to have some of the similarities that I put in this one.
Interesting. All right, that sounds really cool. I know I'm really excited to pick up the book myself. I have the money, I will definitely get it. But
I'm interested. It seems very original. Are there any previously written books that you read or anything that may have inspired you to write it? Or was there any key inspiration? Or was this just like you were born with this idea? Because it seems very original.
Right. Well, I was a big fan of the author Shea Serrano. He's also from San Antonio, like myself. And he wrote basketball and other things. As a big fan, I love that book. Big fan of it. I'm also a big NBA fan, and so I love that one. I love the illustrations and how he broke down different aspects of basketball. It's like, man, if we have this about the colorful world of professional wrestling, if we break it down, make it creative, make it fun, like professional wrestling is perfect for it. It's full of characters, it's full of all this jazz. Somebody should do something like that. The finals say, like, well, why couldn't it be me? And then I just put it together. So he's been a great inspiration. I loved his work. But yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of wrestling authors that I've really liked. I love Shoemaker. I liked his book. There's been a lot of inspirations gathered from all over the place.
Drink it in, man.
Awesome.
right.
You want to do the lightning round stuff?
Let's go. So this is something I came up with kind of last minute, but I'm super excited. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna play something called lightning round. I'm gonna name off a wrestler, and you're gonna have like somewhere under a minute to just kind of say what first comes to your mind when I say their name.
All right.
I try to pick wrestlers that you would be familiar with. As I said, I watched the interview before, so start with something easy. Jake Snake Roberts.
Man, what a unique character. I mean, his delivery and the softness of his voice packaged against the realistic darkness of his life just because of what he's been through. I mean, he is one of the most fascinating characters there is. If there's a biopic that needs to really be made, I mean, Jake the Snake is it. It's going to be a tough movie to make because it's what he's been through, what he's told us he's been through. We've learned in the documentaries, but man, what a fascinating character and that great delivery. And listening to his promos, I mean, there's something like nobody else ever does, and they're really good. They're really good. So I love the Snake.
What about MJF?
Man, he's probably the best on the microphone right now. The best out of these current group of active wrestlers. I think almost nobody can cut a promo as good as him. I love that he stayed and re-signed with AEW. I think they needed him. And at the time, WWE has like almost an embarrassment of riches when they just picked up Punk. And I think at the time he still had Brock and all that stuff. But he needs to go to WWE at some point in his career. Now, he's still very young to make that happen. But man, put him in that WWE machine. Let him go. Ooh, he might have to drop back a little bit. But, I mean, he needs to go there at some point. I would say after this, what he's got, he signed a 4-year deal. After these 4 years are done, man, make that jump. I know Hunter would have him. He's fantastic. He's one of the best young talents available, if not the best young talent available out there in the whole world of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Throw him another one.
All right. So,
throw him another one.
All right. What about let's keep it AEW. Let's keep Swerve Strickland.
I like his presentation. I like what they're doing with him. This last weekend he came out looking super fly. He's a fantastic talent. Is it time to separate from Nana? I don't know. It doesn't seem like the crowd is into the dances they used to be. He hit that peak, and he seems like maybe it is time to slow him down. I wouldn't mind seeing him be part of the Hurt business and like maybe have a loser. If you lose to Bobby, you have to join the Hurt Syndicate now, and have him be like underling until he works his way out of that and then becomes the babyface again. I think he's in. I love what he's doing. I think he's in a little stale pattern right now. But, we need to do something to jazz him up again because, he just lost the big belt. And maybe giving him a couple months of, having to be the, hey, go do that guy. People would really get behind him again. And then when they bring Nana back and do that dance and boom, place would go bananas.
Okay, all right.
The last one I'm going to leave you with, and if you don't want to answer this one, you can just go ahead and say pass and we'll end it there. Chris Benoit, your feelings.
I mean, you can't take out what he did. He's probably did the most horrific thing that any wrestler has ever done. You can't subtract that. It doesn't mean you shouldn't watch his matches anymore and enjoy them. I don't know. There was 2 guys in that match plus the whole promotion, the referee, everything that comes on. It's such a collaborative effort. I'm not gonna not watch his matches, but at the same time, I don't really celebrate the guy because anybody who does something like that is just. You can't be celebrated. I mean, I'm sorry. You just can't be. I know people like Chris Jericho was like, well, you just look at him as a wrestler. I mean, that's true to a certain extent, and there is like people, people still love Michael Jackson. He still has a show in Vegas. He still has a Broadway play about him that gets toured everywhere. Some people aren't above canceling, but I think given what Benoit did, yeah, he's pretty close to it. I mean,
I think that
I don't want them to censor him where they take his matches off, but like we're definitely not making any big documentaries about how great he was.
Well, and it ties into what your book kind of highlights is you can't really get rid of all the history, even when some of it's kind of dark history. There's a lot of history there that you can't erase, and so I think that kind of tied into it.
That's fair.
Yeah, and he's a great study. I mean, what happened? Like, was it the CTE? Was it steroids? Was it drugs? I mean, will we ever know? I mean, it's crazy that he did that flying headbutt, and like that's what I worry about Danielson. Danielson's got that same move, and he's got that same kind of style of wrestling as like Dynamite Kid did, and Chris Benoit did, and both those guys had like kind of short, tragic careers. And Danielson was in that category for the longest time until he made his miraculous comeback. I think the Miz he's got a point when he tells Danielson like, "Hey, I don't have to go that hard because if you do go that hard, like maybe you're not wrestling right because this is what happens." So does the Miz have a point? Because it's a completely different styles. But hey, Miz has the longevity. He's been there. I see Danielson as that like throw it all out there, diving headbutts. But is that causing CTE? Is that going to cause him to go crazy? I mean, I hope not. I don't think so. I don't think so. But I mean, it should. I mean, how could anybody not be concerned with that after they've seen people like what Dynamite Kid and Chris Benoit have been through?
Amen.
That's very good answer. Very good. I agree with everything you said.
Last question is a 2-part question. Just where can viewers go out and get this book? And then after that, where can people follow you at on social media?
Sure. Yeah, you can get the book at mascotbooks.com. That's the name of the publisher. Just look for Lucha Lockup. You'll probably get it a little sooner if you go in there right now and get it. It's also available on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can follow me on the Facebook at ray.lopez.lucha. I'm also on the Twitter at Lucha Lockup. So just look for me on your social medias. I'm around. I'm in there in the wrestling groups and all that jazz. But yeah, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, wherever books are sold. Go to mascotbooks.com, get a copy. If anybody wants a signed copy, hit me up on one of the socials, slide to the DMs, make that happen.
I wouldn't mind that. I'm definitely going to be checking it out myself. I'm going to tell everybody the title one more time. Lock Up, Professional Wrestling in Our World. It comes out December 3rd. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to chat with us today.
Thank you so much.
This is really fun. We should get together and do something else sometime if you're down for that.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you have a good one.
All right. Have a good one.
I've been up all night, baby, I keep it going, catching flight after flight.